Hi everybody, my name is Sierra.struble and I'm an agent in the Augusta, Georgia area. My business is Military Moves with Sierra. Thanks so much for hopping on to watch. Today we're going to talk to you about the 5 top things that you can do to get yourself ready to buy a house credit-wise. So when you're going to buy a house, one of the biggest fears that people have is that they're not ready credit-wise. And a lot of people aren't, but these are going to be some quick tips to be able to get you to that point. And we have a very special guest today. This is Vanessa Hays. She is a mortgage loan officer with Cardinal Financial. And Vanessa, you're licensed in which states?
Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Texas.
So she's got several states under her belt here, and she is wonderful to work with. Vanessa has been a huge asset to my business personally. She has helped many of my clients that I didn't think were going to be able to buy a house be able to buy a house. So if you have any questions on that more specifically, and you live in one of her states, please feel free to reach out to her. She's wonderful to work with. One of the most important things to buying a house is having an agent and a lender that you really trust and can work with. So without further ado, we're going to talk to Vanessa about some of the tips that she has. So what's your first tip for people?
So my first tip is to know your credit. So that's super important. A lot of people come to me. The first question I ask is, do you know what your credit score is? And a lot of them say, no, I have no idea. So you can go to freecreditreport.com once a year and you can get a full credit report. It does not have your scores, but it will have everything on your credit. If you want to know what your credit score is and get like a pretty accurate amount, you can go somewhere like Experian.com. On Experian.com, you have the option to do like a tri-merge, so you can see all 3 of your credit scores. That's really important because they're not all the same, and we go by the mid score. So you can do either of those options, and you really need to look at your credit and see what is on there.
Okay, so freecreditreport.com, maybe go to Experian. Something that I know a lot of the banks have is they have access, or they'll like suggest, especially USAA. So we're talking mostly, I feel like we deal with a lot of VA loans. Vanessa does all of it, but most of my clients are VA, which is why I'm Military Moves with Sierra. So how do you, I know Credit Karma is one that USAA tells people about. I've used Credit Karma for years. Do you feel like Credit Karma is accurate? Do you feel like it's a good resource, or kind of what's your stance on Credit Karma?
So Credit Karma, I mean, I have it personally on my cell phone. It's just a good way to monitor your credit. So the credit score is not always accurate. A lot of times it's not accurate. It's usually higher than what we see when we actually pull your mortgage score. However, it's great to know when things have been added to your credit score, if your credit score has gone up, if your credit score has gone down. Those kind of things are important to know and kind of monitor, and it is a free service, so it's not useless by any means, but it's just not always 100% accurate. A lot of buyers will say, well, my Credit Karma says that my score is 640, we may pull it at maybe 600. So, it's just not super accurate as far as your actual credit score, but it is a useful tool that you can use for free.
Okay, awesome.
So my second tip would be, when you do pull that credit report, look for collections. A lot of buyers come to me, they have no idea that they have collection accounts on their credit. So one thing I've seen a lot of is, say it's like a utility bill from 3 years ago for $100. Most people can just go pay that off, and then it's not gonna, it's gonna bring your credit score up. So look at your collection accounts, call those numbers that are located on the credit report with the collection accounts, and then you can negotiate with them sometimes to get a lower amount, pay that, and get a receipt so that we know that you've paid that off. And because it may not show up on your credit report for 45 to 60 days. So if you have a receipt, we can go ahead and disregard that from your credit. It's not going to improve your score, but we could do a rapid rescore and potentially use that receipt and get you a higher credit score, unofficially, but with a credit rescore.
So a credit rescore, do you know if that's something that, so say we have somebody that's not in one of your states, do you know if that's something that people offer, most lenders offer, or is that something that is like a benefit just for working with you? Do you know?
So most lenders, I feel like, or a good majority of lenders, do offer the credit rescore option. So just have that receipt, turn it into your lender, because we have to show proof to the credit agency that we're using to pull your credit report that you've paid something off to make it beneficial, and it is kind of expensive for us to do. So make sure that you have that receipt, because we're going to need that as proof to do the credit rescore.
Okay, awesome. That makes a lot of sense. I know that the next one is going to talk about credit usage. Can you talk to us a little bit about credit usage and what you mean, as far as your DTI and things like that? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Of course. So Credit usage is how much you're using of your available credit. So if you have a credit card and it's maxed out, that's going to affect your credit score. A lot of people panic and they're like, I owe $2,000 on my credit card. I have to pay that off before I can get a home loan. No, that's not true. We're looking at that minimum payment amount that you have every month. So if your minimum payments add up to, $200, that is going to affect your DTI, but nothing crazy. So you don't have to rush and pay off all your credit cards before you can get a home loan. That is a misconception. However, if your cards are maxed out, then that is going to affect your credit score.
So one quick question about DTI. So when we're talking about your debt to income ratio, is this more of an annual number, or are we really looking at month to month? Are we looking at how much bills you have going out each month? Or are we looking at your annual DTI? Because those numbers might differ a little bit. So just to be clear, if people have $60,000 in income and they pay $50,000 out in bills, that's obviously a really high DTI. Yeah. But are we talking annually or more of a monthly look at it? These people make $5,000 a month and they pay out $3,000,
So we're looking at your monthly DTI. So when we calculate that, we're looking at your income versus what you're paying out every month. In that, we're also including your estimated monthly payment. So it's super important that you tell us kind of the price range you're looking in, so we can put and the area, so we can pull accurate taxes, insurance estimates, and all that. So we take your monthly payments, car payments, installment loans, credit card bills, not your cell phone bill, not your electricity bill, and we divide that by your income to get your debt to income ratio.
Okay. All right. Awesome. That's great information. So what would be your fourth tip?
My fourth tip is charge-offs. Charge-offs are a little tricky. Most of the time, it does mean that the creditor has written that off.
Oh, okay.
However, they can still show a balance. Eventually, those are going to fall off. So you can leave them alone or you can try to pay them off. It really depends on your situation. If you have a lot of other items that can bring up your credit score, you don't really have to touch those. But it is something we may have to factor in, like that you may have to pay, $20 a month towards the charge off or whatever, if that creditor is still trying to come after you for that money. But the charge offs are like one of the things I would look at later after collections, after your credit usage. Then I would look at the charge offs to see what you have going on there and when those are going to fall off your credit report.
Okay, so charge-offs are really they're on the list, but they're kind of lower on the list. That's why they're listed at number 4. They're not as pertinent as your DTI or collections accounts.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then number 5, I know we're talking about medical costs for number 5. Can you explain that a little bit, medical debt and things like that?
Yeah. So medical debt is something we often see on credit reports, and a lot of buyers don't even know it's there. They have medical insurance, and they don't open the envelopes that come from your hospital. They just kind of throw them in a pile and don't ever look at them. Well, those can get sent to medical collections. So if your bill was done incorrectly, billed to your insurance incorrectly, you may have a medical collections. We cannot count that against you for your mortgage. However, they do bring your credit down. Okay. So the important thing is to at least call and try to negotiate with them to get that taken off. Like say, hey, did you bill my insurance incorrectly? I need to get this removed from my credit report. So don't ignore medical collections. Just know we're not going to count the actual monthly payments against you.
Okay, so one thing that I would say to add a little bit to the medical debts is as military families, we move around a lot. And if you go to the doctor shortly before you move and you don't have your mail forwarded, I might know this from a personal situation. If for some reason your mail doesn't get forwarded or something happens at the post office or something like that, then those things can also be sent to collections. So mine was for an ER bill for my son. He was about 2 at the time, and we moved about a month after we had gone to the ER. Thought that TRICARE had covered it all. They did not cover it all. And I found out about it literally 3 years later. They did not file it to collections. I don't know what the hospital was doing, but they did not file it. And I never got an updated one. I don't know if there was an issue with the postal service or what, okay? But I ended up finding out about it, and it really was just that TRICARE and the hospital, there was a coding problem and it was not filed correctly. I didn't end up having to pay any of it, which was great, but it still went on my credit. credit and I had to wait on it to come off my credit. So that again goes back to number one and knowing what is on your credit report. I'm a real estate agent and I didn't do it. So it happens to everybody. So don't be ashamed of things like that. Just make sure that you are going back and checking your credit report because it literally happens to everybody. Is there anything else you want to add? Any other tips?
So the last thing I want to add is if you need help with your credit and want to know where you're at, know that our advice is free. Like, you can call me and I'm not going to charge you to help you look at your credit report. So definitely reach out to a trusted lender, even if it's not me, and they will help you and they're not going to charge you for their services.
Yeah, there's no better resource than a lender when it comes to buying a house. You could talk to an agent all day long, but there are so many things that Vanessa knows that I don't know. She's a resource for me. If you have a lender that you can trust, they are such a big resource. So definitely utilize them. That's really all we have for you guys today. If you are the type of person that wants to get ahead and make sure you're ready to buy a house before you get there, I would say starting this process about 6 months out, because that's going to make time for it to come off your credit report if you do have any issues. So start about 6 months maybe before you're ready to buy a house. And this is just a great place to start. You don't have to start 6 months out. We've dealt with less. So you don't have to do that, but it's just a great place to start. It relieves a little bit of stress off everybody to be able to get ahead of the game, which is a huge thing. So again, make sure you're working with somebody that you trust. I've said it a million times on my channel. I've already said it once during this video. You should never work with somebody that you don't want to work with. So make sure that you are working with somebody that you trust and that you mesh well with. And that is your lender, your inspector, your realtor, anybody that's involved in this process, because buying a house can be a stressful thing, but it doesn't have to be. So I think that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, I will put Vanessa's info and my info in the caption. I'll also put an end screen here so that you can snap that and get in touch with us. But thanks so much for watching, and we really appreciate it. We hope you have a great day.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.